another SalesTV. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, we got some interesting stuff to I was going to say talk about, but actually it's always less of a talk, isn't it? And more of a kind of argument or a bit of banter or a flight of fancy, because we don't prepare any of this stuff. We just have the topics that we're going to talk about or start talking about, and kind of see where we go from there. So should we all introduce ourselves? Alex.
Good morning all. Alex Abbott, founder of Supero. Looking forward to the show.
Andy.
Good morning all. Andy Huff, founder of the Institute of Sales Professionals and lecturer at Cranfield University.
And I'm Adam Gray, co-founder of the LA Ignite. And it's great to be here. Now when I put out the announcement, whenever it was, yesterday or the day before, I thought it'd be quite interesting just to chat around some things that, and largely actually these things have been driven by Andy's work and the conversation around that. So hi Paul.
Morning Paul.
Hi Ian. Hi Andrew. Largely driven by Andy's research and the conversations that have come out of what he's been doing, because we have a weekly chat and his research at Cranfield. And there are some really big challenges facing sales at the moment. Some of those are kind of operational challenges. And I wrote a blog on this post Andy and I having a chat yesterday, which was AI, is it going to impact sales? And Andy said, no, not really, because we've had all of these waves of sales tech, and fundamentally none of them have addressed the issue that salespeople aren't making the number. And often in many cases, it's just given them more tasks to do. Good morning, Ian. So we had a bit of a chat about that yesterday, but also one of the other challenges facing sales is that it's an industry that people aren't very happy in at the moment. You know, there's immense pressure. Lots of time people are investing in doing tasks for which they personally don't see any significant benefit. You've got to enter this stuff into the CRM. You've got to write your email scripts. You've got to cold call people. You've got to do all of these different tasks, and still you're not making your number, and still you're getting laid off at the end of the year. And it's pretty grim. And that, as we uncovered, hi Katarzyna. That, as we uncovered during last week's chat, is part of the reason why there's 95,000 sales roles in the UK that aren't filled and 700,000 sales roles in the US that aren't filled. It's because people don't want to be part of that. You know, micromanage, doing something which seems utterly futile, still not making it. It's like working in a factory, doing the same job over and over and over again, and then not getting paid at the end of the month. It's quite a grim reality, and this clearly has, amongst other things, has a toll on salespeople's mental health. You know, it must be really awful to spend your whole time calling people up, getting through to them eventually, and then being told that they don't want to talk to you. So, you know, riven with rejection, futile tasks, and still not making your number is not a great place to be. So come on, guys, what do we reckon about all of those different points?
I'm just off to get some therapy. So, I mean, I thought it was meant to be a light-hearted banter. It's like most people standing on a stool right now with a rope around the neck. Don't do that, guys. It's a lot more light-hearted than we thought. And on that basis, Adam, they really didn't need to know that it wasn't scripted, because if they've watched the last two, boy oh boy, they've got the kind of general gist of the whole thing. You know, it is fascinating. I was actually out at the Global Sales Science Institute in Toronto, which is a lovely gathering of what I'd say is pretty much purely sales academics from around the world. And I was there in Frankfurt last year, went to Toronto this year. And it was really heartening to see that of the papers being presented, because what you do is you kind of present your conceptual paper, you kind of say, this is where I'm going with it, this is how I'm doing things. And basically, it was great because you saw two trends. One that was a lot of more focus now in academia about proving out the damage to salespeople through mental health and lack of well-being. And then the other one was a lot of focus on artificial intelligence. And actually, don't worry about artificial intelligence. Worry about how you're going to use it, because sales technology has been around for a long, long time. And I'll throw it open to the audience because I'd really love to know what their viewpoint is. But if you think about LinkedIn as an example, CRM, Salesforce, all of those things as examples, and other sales tech, which I won't go into in terms of the branding on this, it's actually led to an all-time low in sales productivity, and it's led to about 52% of transactions and deals ending up in no deal, i.e. staying in the status quo. And if that's the case, what are we expecting AI to do? It's going to be fantastically powerful. That's not the point. Is it going to come? Yep, like a juggernaut on a train, it's going to come. But actually, it's what you do with it and how you embrace it that fundamentally is going to be the difference. And I think the great takeaway, and I don't know if Deva's on, but I know he certainly liked the post before it went out. The reality about it is you're not going to lose your job in sales to AI. It's not going to happen. It's not going to replace people. It's going to replace tasks. It's going to make you more efficient. And I'll end on this point. But you'll probably lose your job to somebody who understands how to actually use it and actually bring it to the fore. And I think it has an opportunity. I'd love your viewpoints on this. What it actually does is it has an opportunity potentially to help well-being because it removes those mundane tasks potentially and gives an opportunity to a salesperson to be magically human at the right human moments with the right human people.
It does, but Adam and I were talking about this yesterday because I was saying pretty much the same point, Andy, and one of those tasks being updating the CRM that all salespeople that I've ever known hate. But then I reflected on some of the things Adam was saying in relation to the meetings that I'd done that week. So one exercise I do myself on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning is update a spreadsheet of all the meetings I've done in the previous week with the date and the time and the person and the company, and then a short kind of brief on what the conversation was. And often in those moments of reflection about the meeting, I think about things that I hadn't thought of before that would influence the next step, would influence that conversation progressing. I thought to myself, well, actually, that's such a valuable activity. So where do we draw the line in terms of what's a low level task versus a high level task? Because if you asked any salesperson, I'm pretty sure they'd say, I want all my meeting notes taken, summary written, update CRM, job done, AI, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, further to our conversation yesterday, which was an interesting bit of banter that we had, wasn't it, Alex? Yes, so we've got, and I don't know who you are, LinkedIn user. You need to change your security settings so stuff can be posted. LinkedIn can post onto other networks. I think that the AI automatically transcribing your conversations and putting that into the meeting notes, there's a fundamental problem with that, which is that, and if I quote back to my favorite book, which is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, written by Douglas Adams, they talk about having something called an electric monk. And an electric monk believes things for you so you don't have to bother, in exactly the same way that a video recorder watches the programs you can't be bothered to watch, and an answering machine has the phone calls you can't be bothered to answer. And the problem with AI automatically transcribing things and putting it into your meeting notes is that you never engage with the conversation. So yes, you get a completely factual representation of what was said by both you and the prospect. But the problem is that you, as an individual, need to consume that content and chew on that content and then work out what that conversation actually meant. Because we all know that when we're talking to people, what they say and what they mean are not necessarily the same thing. And they themselves may not really understand the problem that they have to solve or the ways that they're available for them to solve it. So actually, what you need to be doing is really engaging with the content. And that's why physically taking notes is a really, really powerful thing in order to consume that content. And I think that we've had some really interesting comments here. So Ian saying, 12 years in sales, never been tougher. 12 years in oil and gas, it's busier now with fewer resources. And people talking about too many tools. This can be distracting. It takes you away from what your purpose is, which is to actually engage at a human level with people. And whilst, yeah, it's fantastic to have a paper trail, fantastic to say, I've captured everything out of this conversation. Maybe you've captured all of the minutiae, but you haven't captured the very purpose of the conversation.
Yeah, I love that. LinkedIn user, whoever you are, if you can identify yourself, because you're making some fantastic points. The whole idea about AI, the whole idea about technology, I think, is that it has been employed at the corporate level to a greater degree to actually drive efficiency and enablement, which is the word that I'm allergic to, because fundamentally we never enable the individual, we always enable the process. Let's take an example about AI, and I love it, by the way. I think it's going to be hugely powerful in lots and lots of areas. And I was very lucky to meet Kevin Pence, who's one of the global heads of Microsoft last week, and he was saying in 10 years' time, AI is going to be 32 times more powerful than it is today, and in 20 years' time, it's going to be 100% more powerful. But actually, let's take I was very lucky to hang out with a guy who was the ex-head of the Metropolitan Police hostage negotiation team about 10 years ago. And he talked about critical listening. And what's really fascinating about this, he put everybody into like a high-pressure environment and actually pretended he was the guy who was actually barred up in a house. And then came out, and in his rant there was a couple of key points, like I just want to do the right thing. I want to work hard and come home. And actually, you transport it into AI, and the point being that AI can transcribe everything. But actually, in a meeting, AI isn't really going to help you. To that point, you can't be active as a human being and actually extract the best thing. So if I'm going to have a meeting with you, Adam, I actually need to take Alex along, because I'm going to ask maybe some of the questions and do the scribing, but that leaves Alex to really think about the answer and take the conversation further. And you need those two people at those really important meetings. And yes, have AI transcribe it later. That's brilliant. Or even be doing it so there's two of you thinking about those things. So, it can be absolutely massively harnessed, and that's not my point. But actually some things about the humanity, 70-80% of human interaction is nonverbal. And you're not going to be able to capture that with technology.
Yeah, it's like when you go away. So I went away on a holiday once, and it included a train journey, famous train journey, and amazing how many people spent the whole time on the train hanging out the window with their video cameras, videoing it, rather than actually being there present in the moment, enjoying the journey. So whilst, yes, they had a fantastic video capture of the whole holiday, they themselves were not on holiday. They were going to relive it on TV at some point in the future. And I think it's a really important thing that we're actually there listening to what's going on, but we have to process that content as well, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. Somebody once pulled me, a lovely friend of mine, Charlotte, be in the moment. You're never in the moment, Andy. You're always off thinking about something else. You're always, thinking about the next thing, or you're thinking about the next flight or something. It's right.
But not today. Not today, hey, Andy, because your jet lag.
Jet lag is it? And I was on time today, which is, let's be honest, is a step forward from last week. And if we could just email Tim, that would be wonderful. Yeah, because he wasn't here to see it. Yeah, Tim's on a holiday, by the way, everybody. Otherwise, I could throw him under the bus and say he's massively late. But
Yeah, no, he's currently in Tuscany, and he's taking great joy in sending me every day at lunchtime. He sends me a screen grab of the menu that he's about to choose from, which is really disheartening because he's got all of these fantastic, authentic Italian dishes, and I've got a pot noodle or a cheese and pickle sandwich to look forward to.
You know what, mate? You're living the dream. I tell you what. That's what powers the brain behind Adam. We all know now what Branston sales on this call are going to go up by about 400%.
I would certainly like to think so.
There you go. Other brands available, by the way. Andrew, loved while everyone is scrambling to keep up with technology, the fundamental issues of training and knowledge sharing are always missed. I think that is spot on. We all know I'm allergic to the word training, but this knowledge sharing and how you use technology to help that, but more importantly, how you learn and reflect, I do think is constantly missed. So thank you for that, because we've got to continue to develop ourselves as human beings.
Yeah, and one of the problems surely is that when we enable people with this tech, whatever the tech is, and it will be the same with AI, we train them how to operate the tech. We don't train them why they should be using the tech.
Yeah, that comes back to Grant's point earlier on this. And hi, Grant, how you doing? We will have you on in a couple of weeks, and we're just building up the audience before we give you the stage. It is down to leaders to find a way to help people manage these developments, and that's this clearly signpost. And I think it's ever more important going forward that there's a coherent plan that leaders articulate. Too many times it's a fire alarm. Margins down, it's negotiation skills training for just about everybody. Oh, cool, blimey, we're losing relationships, Millie Hyman, let's go and get blue sheets rolled out everywhere. And it can't be like this constant fire alarm. There's got to be a consistent journey that is a rolling 5-year plan that leaders can articulate, that people can buy into and go, I know where I fit in that plan. I know where, as a sales manager, I'm taking that strategy and turning it into execution, and I'm coaching my people in order to be able to be sensational. Because isn't it really that we should be putting ourselves in a position where we allow people to turn up as the very best version of themselves that they can be?
We should, but then that's the risk. I think there's a risk with AI that people are turning up to lean on the AI rather than be encouraged or forced to be the best version of themselves, where they have to really think about the customer problem or how to respond to a customer. What about the ethics of the whole situation? So now that sales people are using AI to write emails, and even now to reply to comments on social media, where the recipient of the message feels like it's an individual they're actually talking to, as opposed to a bot. What about the ethics of it, and the potential deception that someone might feel when they realize, oh, that wasn't a human being I was talking to?
I think that is the billion-dollar issue right now. So if you're we've seen 3 or 4 very high profile fathers of AI resign in the last 2-3 weeks, citing the fact that they never thought it was going to basically exponentially grow as it does, and there is ethical problems around it. So let's take something that is is not in the controversial space. So me as a doctoral researcher and writer, if I want to go on to Google and try and Google Scholar and try and find some papers, that can be a pretty long process. If I went on to AI and said, basically, could you write me 1,000 words on the ethics of AI in sales and give me academic references, most of those academic references would be wrong. So you'd have to go off somewhere else and actually double check the validity of them. Or you'd have to go back and go, okay, thank you for that. Can you now double check your answers? And if you do that, have a play around with it, everybody. If you do that, what you'll find is it will come back and apologize to you and go, I got it wrong. And so actually at the moment, to your point, Alex, it is a flawed model to base accuracy of information on. because it acts as basically one big scrape. It scrapes just about everything it can to give you an answer. But as it becomes more powerful, the accuracy of that scrape will improve dramatically, and you'll be able to become far more comfortable about automating those particular things. But here's the really powerful thing. We're going to be doing this with in a sales lab at Cranfield in the next couple of weeks, which is actually setting up a bunch of students to give us an answer to a request for information. And then what we want to score is the difference between those. And then what we want to do is say, actually then look at the differences, apply some of your own ingenuity and apply some of your own creativity to that answer. Because I think in the first sample, what we'd end up doing is getting very little variance whatsoever. And there's the problem, actually, Alex. There's no ingenuity into it. If you ask for an RFI, you're going to get 17 broadly similar answers. So it doesn't really help you. And actually, the second one will be, okay, there'll be more variance, but then you want to look at the people that created the maximum amount of variance and go in and found out why. What goes on up here that actually changes that and makes it far more impactful?
Well, I think there are two things there that are worth picking up on. Firstly, you spoke about the accuracy of answer. Since when has accuracy had anything to do with sales? And I say that rather tongue in cheek, but actually, often the salesperson is so motivated by making their number that the answer is yes, irrespective of whether the answer is in fact yes. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, Alex, you said about you're a prospect, you're having a conversation, and it turns out that you're having a conversation with AI rather than the person that you think you're engaging with. Is that any different to you're having a conversation with a BDR rather than the person that's knowledgeable and experienced? Actually, I think equally that's not exactly immoral, but it's actually not the way that I would want to be processed. I wouldn't want to be having a conversation with a BDR. I would want to be having a conversation with an expert that can help me. And that tends not to be the BDR. You know, the people that haven't yet made the jump from BDR into proper full-blown sales, those are people that are still cutting their teeth. And you know, we've had this conversation before. What can, and rather tarring everybody with the same brush here, what can a 22-year-old business development representative possibly do in terms of helping me shape my business?
Yeah,
you know, a 45-year-old guy or girl that's grown a business, developed a business, understands the machinations of the business world. Okay, that's somebody that I will take advice from.
Yeah, there's two pretty big points there, Adam. I think firstly on the accuracy side, you know, I think today many salespeople that take pride in their job and are working at the top level, you know, they would feel. I mean, these are, you know, personally as a high performing sales rep, I considered myself as an athlete, and if someone said to me what you said to me, I'd say, "F off, mate. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you would. But Andy, what percentage of salespeople make their number?
It's somewhere between 35 and about 37. 67% don't make.
Okay, so Alex, you were in that top third, yeah? You made your number.
Yeah.
So you're not representative of the vast majority of salespeople out there. You're representative of the elite athlete salespeople. So I think that, yes, and you know, we've worked at organizations where there are salespeople there that you look at them and you just go, wow, how did you do that? You just had everything at your fingertips and you knew exactly the answers to give, and the customer was eating out of your hand. And then there's a bunch of people that actually haven't even bothered to rehearse the presentation. And those are the people that are not making their number. Those are the people that are not getting conversations going. So actually, I think that my point wasn't a blanket point, but I think it's true. I think the majority of salespeople are not reflecting well on the business because for whatever reason, they're not you.
Yeah. No, fair point. Now, okay, so from a BDR perspective, they're aspiring to be the elite. They're aspiring to take the next step up the ladder. and they've got the hardest job in the world, right? Prospecting for me is one of the most, it's not the most, it's one of the most hardest things we have to do in sales, yet we give that job to the most junior people within the organization. So, I think that, I've worked with some brilliant BDRs that I've looked at and thought that is just amazing what you're putting together to try and educate and provide insight and teach a prospective buyer. But to your point, Adam, I think buyers have really they've turned off, they've zoned out of any insight, and insight-led sales is very, very difficult today. Buyers would rather have a relationship. They'd rather speak to their mate or the community that they're part of to get impartial guidance and advice, and they don't feel they can get that from BDRs.
Right, I think that's certainly true. So I was having a conversation with a sales leader at a client of ours, must be a couple of years ago now, and they were saying that there was a dearth of quality leads, which of course there are, and they were saying that they were working with their BDR to develop this market, and they were really struggling. And my conversation, my comment to him was, who's better at converting that medium quality lead into a proper opportunity, you or your BDR? And he said, well, I am, of course. Okay, so what the hell are you giving it to your BDR for? If you had 1,000 leads a day coming in, give them to your BDR. If you're getting 1 lead a week coming in, it's contingent on you to actually deal with it, because you've got the greater chance of closing it or turning it into something valuable. And like you, Alex, you work with a really great BDR, and you were, wow, that you're doing a fantastic job. But I bet the job they were doing was not as good as the job you could have done. And that's the point. And that's where the kind of the tech helps provide scale for you to do the prospecting, rather than expecting the BDR to do it. Because by nature of the fact that, I go into a disco and nobody wants to dance with me because I'm an old bloke. So actually I'm the wrong person to be sending into the disco to get a dance. Much better sending.
That's a frightening analogy.
It's terrifying, isn't it? Even as I was saying it, I was thinking that's not good.
I had my heart in my, I had wondered where you were going with that one, whether it was a confession or it's like, So, and you personally, I think you probably scarred a lot of people on this call now who are going to be trying to get that image out of their head. For the rest
apologies, everybody. Next week I'll wear my disco outfit, shall I?
Yeah. And by the way, they don't actually call them discos anymore. you're gonna struggle to find something called a disco. Yeah, they're called clubs. Apparently, I haven't been in one either. I'm 52. But I haven't actually said, even though I tried to actually go in one. Hey, you mentioned the word scale, cracking. That's the point. Everyone's trying to find the answer to how do you scale? How do you do, exponentially more next year than you did this year? Because the shareholders, whether that be a private shareholder, private equity, or public shareholders, everyone wants more. I mean, let's be brutally honest. If anyone can give me an example where their target went down, I'll literally drive to wherever they are and buy them a beer, because it never does. The reality about it is everyone's trying to find that secret squirrel answer. And that is why sales technology has bloomed. Last year, a great guy for Howard from Houston basically put up this huge, really complicated picture of all the logos in the marketing stack. And it was crammed. It was like, it's like 10,000 logos in the marketing stack. There's already about 1,000 in the sales stack. I think we talked about it last week. And everyone's competing to make everybody really, really enabled, and at scale. Yeah, but all it does is accelerate to the point of humanity. What are you going to be doing with yourself and your customers to build rapport, to demonstrate your personal brand is actually worth engaging with? And those are things that you need to apply the grey matter to. You can have all the tech in the world, but what sets you out from the next person is somebody that is trustworthy. Adam, we've talked about it tons of times, appealing and attractive to have a conversation with. And it comes down to a level of professionalism. You know, I don't go and talk to a doctor unless I'm completely convinced that they're actually a bloody good doctor. And actually, I have walked out of doctor's surgeries where I go, actually, the rapport isn't there. I don't think this person's listening to me.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, you wouldn't have your car checked out by somebody who never done, you know, some engineering or car mechanic sort of like qualifications. And that's, I think, this interesting thing now that we look at technology and we look at all of this stuff, but let's talk about personal brand. Let's get our personal brand changed so that people will engage with us earlier in the process and go, I stand a really good chance of having a conversation, and at some point in that conversation, Andy you'll go, I don't think we've got the right solution for you here. And I also don't think necessarily you've got the right self-diagnosis. So should we just cut it there? Let's help you go back and really understand what you're trying to achieve, why you think that is a problem. And I'll connect you to 2 or 3 people who've overcome those issues, because that's credentials, isn't it? You saying I'll go and do that. And actually, you know, I'm going to turn up and have a different kind of engagement with you. And to the point there, somebody said, what are the behaviors of, you know, salespeople who are...
I was just about to reference that. So we've got 2 comments here from LinkedIn user. The first one here, has anyone got any data on why people are winning sales in 2023? Is there a trend, or is it just luck mixed with product market fit order taking? That's a really good question. And also this one, what are the behaviors of salespeople that are actually making their numbers?
Yeah. To your point, Andy, I think in order for the salesperson to have the confidence to do exactly what you just described, the business needs to be providing their full support to them, and the business needs to be crystal clear on what their value proposition is and the problem that they solve. And it's, you know, it starts with the marketing, it starts with the messaging and the qualification. I think too many people today, the desperation, anything that they'll try and do.
Yeah, I think that there's, you know, somebody said here, what are the behaviors? And actually in academia, but actually in knowledge sharing, it's actually not behaviors, it's KSBs, knowledge, skills, and then the behaviors that those knowledge and skills have basically enabled. And the behaviors of people who are doing really, really well, and I like this here, is that they're authentic, they're relaxed about their own self, they have a true, proper sense of self-worth. You know, a joke used to be that was arrogance, you know, but they're an engaging individual and human being. And there's another interesting thing that came out recently about the ability to build rapport. It's not just small talk at the start of the meeting, you know, talking about where did you go on holiday, what do you think? It's about that genuine sense of rapport, that genuine sense of building. And actually, if you look at Mark and some of his work, we should get him on, is to talk about that brutality of vulnerability in relationships between organizations. And those organizations that say, you know what, we've got some problems, we're not brilliant. You know, we've got some challenges and we overcome them in these ways. And then the customer starts to say, well, yeah, you're right. Actually, you know, we've got these challenges as an organization and corporation. And you start to get organizational trust. And there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that says, you know, it's not a process that you just repeatedly go through. It's humanity. And let's not forget, people buy even really complex stuff gets bought because of emotion. And then we justify it with the other side of our head. And we forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the authenticity for both the buyer and seller is so crucial. You know, over the last 6 months, I've had a number of conversations with organizations where, you know, I have, as you guys know, said, you know, one of the things that we solve is a lack of pipeline. That's what we're here to do. We will help you address your pipeline issues. To which I've been told, yeah, we haven't got pipeline issues. We've got loads of opportunities. Oh, fantastic. But that's not something I hear very often. And then next thing you know, a third of the workforce have been laid off. Well, actually, if you've got loads of pipeline and you're closing stuff, you're not laying people off, you're hiring people. And it's about saying, okay, these are the problems that we have, you know, and whether that's my fault that my business has these problems, or it's the market or the competitive environment. But for whatever reason, we haven't got enough stuff coming in, and that's what we need to address. Yeah. If they're honest, everybody has a pipeline issue at the moment. And looking back over the comments, exactly why. It's a case of salespeople not being productive, maybe in part because they're not focusing on their humanity. They're not focusing on having conversations with people. They're focusing on doing all of the tech stuff to try to apply scale. So, email marketing would be a great example of this. Email marketing, when the advent of email marketing, was a fantastic opportunity for organizations to hyper target individuals and make sure that they were going to exactly the right individual with exactly the right offer at exactly the right time. And did they do that? No, largely they didn't. What they did was they thought, well, we'll just send 10 times as many communications as we did previously, in the hope that would yield 10 times the revenue, and it didn't.
Yeah. And now we're in this economic uncertainty, and people and companies are relying on scale, when actually the real problem is relationships and not enough of them.
And I think that this is incredibly damaging.
Yeah, I mean,
because we see this so often, don't we? The promise of a constant stream of quality leads being delivered by our tech solution. And
but it comes down. It's brilliant. It's the question that those tech companies ask: would you like more leads? Would you like to hit your number? Would you like 2.5 times?
Yes, please.
The answer to that is absolutely yes. Yeah. The reality about it is that as we all get absorbed into this real kind of technology, actually the people that will be really great will know how to use it when and when not to use it.
But isn't that again playing to that top 36% of people that Alex is part of, not the remainder of the sales industry? So if that's uniform across all organizations, 1/3 of your sales team are productive and 2/3 are not productive.
So that depends on actually if we had the data about those 2/3 that are not, because 2/3 or another third could be in the range of 85% to 100, which doesn't really make them dramatically unproductive. Yeah. You then layer over that over quotering, and I would say in the reality of what the corporation truly needs from them, they are productive. However, the organization overloads at every level as an insurance policy and actually makes that a situation where you could have 50 to 60% of people fundamentally successful. The impact of that is we tell a lot more people than we need to, you know what, you suck.
Yeah, 100%. How many organizations, sales orgs within organizations that are given their target by finance and not actually calculated it based on value prop and territory size?
I've been in so many companies where fundamentally, you firstly, you're having a conversation about your target in February, which is not a great start to the year because 6 of it's gone by the time you sort it.
Thank you, Steve. Absolutely fantastic comments from you. So we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
And the reality around it is that fundamentally, the bit, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but because the whole concept of getting people to be successful is assisting them to be the best they can be. So, and back to the finance point, which is, it's given to you. And how many times have people gone, but that's not realistic because I've fundamentally looked at my market, looked at my patch and done all this. And I think this is realistic. Never seen that conversation overturned ever. Never seen finance come back and go, you know what, we've been reflecting on this. You know what, we're completely unrealistic and we're going to go back to the shareholders and say, you know what, it's wrong. Poor old Andy is never going to hit 25% increase in his target. So what we're going to do is set it at 5 because we think that's realistic and we don't want him to leave and then have a fundamental issue about replacing him. It doesn't happen.
No.
But they come back to, are we seen as professional again, or are we seen as these people that want to have the lowest possible target because we want to smash it out the park and earn the best commission?
Yeah.
Back to this professionalism of, I have financial acumen as a salesperson, and therefore I can do you a SWOT analysis of my area or my customers, and consequently, here's the answer. Here's what is achievable.
But when you were in corporate life, Alex, when finance trickled down to you, here's what your number is as a team, and you went back to them and said, yeah, but we're not going to be able to achieve that. We're breaking into a new market, and last year we did blah, and I'm prepared to accept a blah plus 10% this year, but there's no way we can achieve this number. And the feedback, I imagine, normally was, well, that's your number.
Yeah.
It's not like there's any dialogue going on here. It's
you got to love those rich conversations, haven't you? Can't achieve it, but that's your number. Can't achieve it. No, but that's your number. You're not listening.
Yeah. And then it affects morale. It impacts mental health of salespeople over time. Yes, there's a degree of creativity and thinking outside of the box, but doing that time after time, year after year, is can be draining.
Of course, it can. I mean, you would only have to be human to find that really tiring, and that constant, because no matter how you view it, making your number is average. It's not average, but your view is that it's average. It's the datum point. You're either above your number or below your number. If you're below your number, you're below average. Nobody wants to be below average today.
No.
I love that comment from Rob, by the way. As a finance person, we deal with overly optimistic and overly pessimistic sandbaggers. I've not heard sandbagging. That's brilliant. That's taken me back. Ultimately, we need a realistic target. As if 67% miss the target, we get fired too.
That's a really good point.
I actually think the problem with that, Rob, is, and I'm not arguing against the great point, is we actually don't fire 67% of the people. They leave.
No. I don't think that's his point. I think his point is that if he's in finance and he sets a target and the target is missed by 67% of people, it's not just the salespeople that should get fired, it's the finance people.
Yeah,
set the wrong target.
That's a lovely fantasy. I've never seen a person because they got the wrong numbers. Having said that, it should be a symbiotic relationship where both people are looking at it way in advance and understanding what it is. Because the cost of sale actually for finances, and I've not seen a lot of people, and I'd be interested in your view here, Rob. I've not seen a lot of organisations truly understand the impact of churn or attrition on cost of customer acquisition cost, and especially now there's no more free money, EBITDA. So that is really starting to ratchet up. So I suspect that this year there's going to be a lot of people, and we've talked about BDRs, a lot of people in companies that employ BDRs that are going to be very much under pressure because money was coming in. And it was absolutely, grow at any cost, and get out there. That's not the mantra anymore. And I think actually full circle back to AI, which is pretty much where we started. If you look at most of the organizations now that are being funded, AI. Everybody else that was being funded is now no longer in the queue for someone to invest a bunch of money.
Yeah. But is you said about the MarTech 12,000 as it is now, all of these MarTech companies in the space. Is there any need for this volume of stuff? Is a recession that's going to drive many of these companies to the wall? These Me Too type companies. Is that actually something that we need? Because the problem is if there's another entrant into the whatever space, I've now gone from 57 companies to 58 different companies I can choose that all do ostensibly the same thing. At the end of the day, you only need two types of matches: cheap matches and swan vestas. You only need.
It's like a trip down memory lane. This is with discotheques and swan vestas. You're going to pull out a pipe in a minute and start doing like a Bing Crosby.
It's funny you should mention that, my friend.
So that was a bit more Popeye, wasn't it? Apologies. Let's look at it. there's a realistic way. So tech companies have two options, don't they? Which is, if you're established, you either have a really good R&D department, which costs you money, or you acquire somebody which has got a real cool feature and function, and you integrate it in. And that as a game has been going on for like 2-3 decades, and there's actually nothing wrong with that. But I do come back to, I think the proliferation of free money, or a lot of dry money in the market, has allowed a lot of organizations to get seed capital and then go and I think high tech PE companies are now reevaluating that at pace and speed. And the shift has definitely gone to AI technologies, and that's where most of it. So you are going to see, I think, a lot of organizations that are going to either be acquired or they will go to the wall, because the value that they had is no longer there financially. And so I do think you'll get a natural settling of the market. And I think you're also going to have a huge amount of people weighing in on the debate and actually looking at humanity versus technology. And, Gerd Leonhard is the futurist who's all over YouTube, and, go and have a look at some of his stuff. He's true. Alex, he talks about, technology cannot be human. It doesn't matter how great it is, it still can't be human, because it actually has to be programmed by a human. It has to be developed by a human. So it can mimic humanity, but it can't be. And it doesn't have the same level of ethics. It doesn't have the same level of authenticity. It's robotically done. And actually, therefore, it doesn't displace people. It doesn't displace humanity, but it can remove some of the mundane things. It can remove forecasting. And I believe that a lot of the taxes that were on people, the previous wave, let's call it wave .1 for sales technologies, I think that's gone. In 5 years, people won't forecast anymore, because AI will do it better than the human being and more authentically, which basically means your Mondays are back.
Yeah.
You can go and do stuff that you didn't need to do because your Mondays aren't forecasting anymore.
That's a conversation. That's a 45-minute conversation in itself, Andy.
Right. Well, maybe we'll tackle that next week. So we're at time. In fact, we're slightly over time. So thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining. Thank you, my friends on the panel, and hope to see you all next week. Until then, have a great week, everyone.